Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. The next few weeks will be very crucial, ahead of the National Day and, of course, ahead of September. We will determine the fate of the nation. Perhaps you may want to say politicians will decide the fate of the nation, and we need to ramp up our vaccination targets to make it even higher. And, of course, to reopen our economy in stages. We can't afford to stay locked down. That's the reality. It's time for businesses to reopen. We've enhanced SOPs. And of course, we really need to put Malaysia on track again. And with Malaysia Day just around the corner, we really need to bring Malaysians together again. And tonight, with us is Datuk David Gurupatham, a lawyer and co-founder of Industries Unite. And of course, Syed Sadiq a moderation advocate and co-founder of Projek 57, a social enterprise committed to building unity and hope. And they are true Malaysians, patriotic Malaysians. And as you can see, all of us are wearing our uniform, so to speak.
Thank you. Thanks for the support, Dr. Sri. Thanks.
Yes, man. Thank you, guys. Okay. You know, Malaysia is so divided. We are literally in a mess. And that we seems to have difference in opinions, which is okay, and that we have been able to hold ourselves pretty well. But our biggest problem is, of course, beating the pandemic, getting Malaysians vaccinated fully, and to reopen our economy. And but as we do this, the country is basically in the flux of things. There's a lack of confidence. There's a trust deficit. And Malaysians do not feel really good ahead of the National Day, and they feel really down. I just want to get the comments of you two gentlemen on what do you think is happening in this country and how you feel we should move on.
Dato, go ahead.
Can I be blunt?
Sure, please. Please.
Too much politics, too little work, too little effort, too little leadership. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Okay.
Okay, I think that if you look at the papers today, it is filled of numbers, right? How many I have, how many you have, how many in parliament. But, you know, the numbers of people in hospitals, the number of beds, I think that should be the focus right now. But there's not a lot of it, right? Yep. If you look at the media, they are more concerned. Sorry, you're from media as well. But
no, go ahead, please.
You know, they're more concerned about how many vehicles left the Prime Minister's office than the convoy of vehicles heading towards the cemetery. You know, I saw something on Harit Iskandar's thing. I thought that was compelling. It was very disturbing, you know, but it just brought to light that, you know, as a society, you know, what are we prioritizing here? You know, and I think it's time, and I've said this, and I'm sure you're on my social media, RealChunWai.
Yeah.
People first, politics later.
Yes, agree.
Yeah. I'm just going to weigh in there as well, and I'm going to be honest as well. Yeah.
Please.
When I joined Dr. David G on this, I mean, the other problem that we have is that, like you said just now, Dr. Sri, about trust deficit. And why is there a trust deficit? It's because the numbers that we talk about and that we focus on are, you know, people always tend to massage it differently. For example, like you look at the number of infections, daily infections reported, right?
Yep.
People started reporting saying that the numbers were coming down. But we weren't honest about the fact that we need to look at the positivity rate. And that's the important thing. And that's the part where right now the trust deficit is. Yeah? The politics is actually not difficult to solve. I mean, yeah, of course, the politics gives, you know, it's the sexy story and it's the one that's exciting and everybody wants to know who's got the numbers, right? But actually, it's we should just, as always, follow by convention. What is so difficult? By convention, if something doesn't happen and there seems to be an issue, we put it to a vote. And it's not about trying to, I think, unseat anyone, actually, to be honest. And I think most of us everyone's quite independent about what they feel. It's not trying to get rid of anybody. It's just like, so that we silence the critics, so that we can actually move forward. And that's the main problem. And that's taking limelight when it should be COVID.
Yeah.
Agreed. Can I just sort of
please.
add something on the trust deficit point, right?
Yeah.
First, I forgot to congratulate you, Dato Sri, for being on the panel of the National Recovery Cabinet. Let me also congratulate.
Hey guys, that's a thankless job and a big headache. Okay.
No, but I think it's a good team. Everybody sees me hammering the government all the time. I think when they have done something good, I think the finance minister, we've agreed to disagree on many times, but we know we're on the same team. So I think we're moving in the right direction. But and why I say that is something that we've been asking for a more inclusive and a broader perspective, was because there was a very clear disconnect between the people up there who were making serious policy decisions, and what was happening on the ground. We saw that when the finance minister came out and said no moratorium because 80% of people can pay their loans. But that wasn't the reality on the ground. Okay, but that was good because we were able to engage, in a very persuasive way. And fair enough. The government then looked at the data on the ground and said, "All right, fine. I think we need this." So that's good. In early June or June, we wrote an open letter to the Prime Minister, and that was published in the papers. And we said, you know what, we need a broader perspective so that you get to see what's happening on the ground. And within 2 weeks, Dato Sri, as you are aware, there was such a big change in perception, because suddenly you see that people were now realizing what is really happening on the ground. Because, with due respect, if the Prime Minister comes out and says, I think most people's kitchens are full, that is not true. I would like to invite him to follow me on Projek Satu Hati, where we're feeding people. And I'm sure Project 57 under Syed, Sadiq, will tell you the same thing. The realities on the ground is very grim. There are a lot more problems that need to be fixed. So when it comes to trust deficit, I think one of the first things that they seem to have cleared is now taking the views of other people and people on the ground.
So, okay, David, when we talk about trust deficit, it's pretty serious in Malaysia. A year ago, when we had the double-digit numbers in the COVID-19 infections, it was double-digit, and of course, most Malaysians say, "Oh, it must be higher than that." The government is keeping it very low.
Yep.
And now we have got 20,000, 30,000. Everybody says, no, it cannot be that high, because it must be massaged by the government so that the government can continue the emergency rule. Okay, and then 3 weeks ago, everybody says that, look, we must end the emergency. It's no good for the country. And when it was revoked, then we have people saying that, no, it should not be revoked this way, It must go to the parliament in a proper manner. So Malaysians are very divided. Now, the government has said that now, let's ease the restriction. Let's allow Malaysians to go back to business and carry on with their life in a certain managed way for those who are in phase 2, that they can move on. And again, of course, Malaysians says that no, it is really a bad idea, because that a lot of us will end up in the coffins. A lot of people will die because of this relaxation in rules. Now, aside, and David, want to hear from you. Is this relaxation a good way to move on?
Dato Sri, it's very important to have a plan. But I think the other problem when you actually have a plan is to make sure that we have a strong leadership and direction in terms of what is in place. Yeah? There are many times, a leader has to make an unpopular decision. But for you to actually be confident and understand what it is that what it is this roadmap is. I mean, for example, if you want to talk about, we've got to open up. No one understands COVID actually. Look at England. Look what's happened over there. Look at the infection rate, right? But because of the vaccination rate, the hospitalization is controlled. Even America, no one understands it yet. So it's still, in a sense, somewhat of an experiment everywhere in the world. But we have to actually have a plan. And if we don't have a plan, then how are we ever going to move forward? How can we actually think about things? And this is part of the process. Now, is the plan going to work? Is something that we have to make sure that we take every single, we mitigate every single risk. For example, like if we say we're going to open schools on September 1st, which is supposed to be, in just about 2 weeks, right? Have the teachers been vaccinated? Have the parents actually been informed that teachers have been vaccinated? And this is the plan for those above 12 to 18 vaccination, or those below. Testing's been done by, by foreign countries, and we're waiting for those results. So again, these kind of things have not actually been shared. So how do we actually feel confident and support it is something that is very important. You need the buy-in from the people, but the leadership is crucial. You have to be very clear about what you want to do.
I think that just hang on in response to what Syed has said. I think in case of Klang Valley, at least 50 to 60% of the adult population has been fully vaccinated. And in many areas like in Langkawi, it's almost 80% vaccinated. So when they decide to open up these sectors, the most important thing that they look at is how many percent of the population has been vaccinated, and at what point do we reach herd immunity? I think these are crucial plans. But I want to hear from David because you represent the SMEs and, of course, the importance of opening up. Your views, please.
Okay, the point I was trying to share, and in relation to what Sadiq just sort of finished with, was on the issue of clarity. Okay, so when we leading to the other point, which was, hey, people are this and that, people have this view and that view. It's mainly because people don't know. I mean, I can tell you, even in my group yesterday, the WhatsApp exploded. Oh, can we open? Can we not? What is phase one? This lack of clarity has been a problem for a lot of people. Okay, and when you talk about leadership, and I come back to what you're saying, when you have KKM, for example, people have a false expectation. People have an expectation that if they stay at home, we're going to get to zero.
Yeah.
Because we did that earlier in MCO1. Well, you know what? Then was a pandemic. We didn't have certain mutations. We're in a different scenario now.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be explained to a lot of people so that they understand why we're not looking at the big numbers. Okay, because now the numbers are the what do you call it, the hospitalizations. Because as we have seen in America and all of that, with the vaccinations, and I got to say a big thank you to Kyrie, and he's done. I mean, we've got to say he's done a great job.
Yes.
But when you have the vaccinations, then what happens is really you're trying to look at whether we've reached a breakthrough whereby the critical ill, the 4 and 5 categories in hospitals are reduced. So that should have been the focus. I think that was something that we spoke about, but now needs to be clarified so that people understand why we have suddenly made a change. So if people are saying, "Oh, you say can now, say cannot," you don't blame the people because they don't understand that. That needs to be clarified. For example,
David, that for 1.5 years, our biggest problem was this: there was a lack of strategic communications. There was no specific strategic communications plan that you have trained people who could explain to the rakyat on what the government was doing. So if you want to have the whole of nation approach, everybody must feel that they are part of this battle to fight this pandemic. And of course, it didn't help that we have ministers who could not even get their facts right. And they make U-turns, and sometimes they contradict themselves within 24 hours. And of course, the public loses its trust. And that is the reason. And they have done it 1.5 years later, okay? And they should have almost, when I say they, it means the government. They could have included the opposition members, professional groups 1.5 years ago. But finally, it has happened. Never mind, it's a bit late, but we need to move on. Yeah.
But the problem still persists. It was just a couple of weeks ago when on Sunday, our health DG says, COVID voice numbers going to come down.
Yep.
3 days later, he said, no, we expect COVID numbers to go up. I mean, it's documented. It's there.
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, the DG actually says that we may even hit 24,000 positive cases before it goes down. I think you remember reading that, right?
Yeah.
And today he's saying that the numbers are going down. I'm also confused.
Don't blame the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I, Dr. Sri, you mentioned just now, you were talking about the ministers, U-turns and all of this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We take another example. And again, this is about leadership, right? This is in a sense, the dua darjat situation as well, in terms of whether ministers have to be quarantined and not be quarantined, when they travel, when they don't travel, government people and all of that. So again, all these inconsistencies also creates that trust deficit. Now that trust deficit is the thing that you could have easily reprimanded people and be able to win people over. It's so easy. It's not difficult. People just want to see you do the right thing. You just have to do the right thing. It's not difficult. But unfortunately, you choose to defend it in another way. Right?
You know, Syed, that you talk about this Dua Darjat thing. You know that it all started because of the Sabah elections. If they had come back and they have quarantined themselves properly, then there would not have been an outbreak. We would have kept to the 2 digits. And let's talk about the case of the Kedai Menteri Besar. I mean that he went out and then he went on the test drive and then he denied, you know. I mean, the whistleblower was, he had ran into the problem. I mean, come on, man. Why does it take so long to actually investigate him? I think it was almost 2 weeks. I mean, it was you and me. I think we would have been hauled up in 24 hours. So that's where people are pissed off, right?
That is right. A burger guy or a food delivery guy immediately gets a compound of 10,000 on the spot. But for these guys, an investigation needs to happen. It seems a bit strange when you already have evidence. I'm sorry. This is the way it is. And you know what? People judge you by your actions. People don't judge you by just stories. This is for everyone to see. Yeah. You're talking about a connected world now. Everyone's at home and everyone's actually doing research, okay? No one's just sitting around deciding on their own what happened. It just doesn't come to them. People are studying this. You know?
I think in moving forward, obviously that we may end up with the same problem again. When you open up restaurants and you open up retails, because many people are not sure whether it's phase 1 or phase 2, you know, we get this confusion. And then this is where the enforcement officers from the councils come in. And of course, we know that they have powers and sometimes they exercise it wrongly. And I think that it makes sense when these enforcement officers, when you are dealing with a burger seller or a small trader, the most you can do is to reprimand him, talk to him and says that, don't do this again, okay? If this happen again tomorrow, I will fine you or I will confiscate your goods. Why can't they do this? I can never understand. They must wallop you and give you a big summon on the spot for this poor guy who is not even earning 10,000 ringgit a month. This is something I can never understand. And I really hope to use my position in the council to actually tell the Prime Minister that, look, come on, man, tell these guys off. Please behave yourself with some decorum and exercise your common sense and with some compassion. The rakyat is not asking for anything more. They just want some sense of fairness. And I think they deserve it. We all deserve this sense of fairness. And look at our guys. I mean, come on. I mean, these MPs are staging demonstration, okay? I thought that the teenagers in black behave much better than them. You could see that they try to exercise some form of SOP with a space in between them. And our MPs were all in one group together, rubbing against each other. I mean, these are bad examples by both the government MPs and the opposition MPs. Unfortunately, we are stuck with this. I mean, can we have views on this, David?
Yo, can I tell you something? Sorry, I didn't mean to quote somebody who said the same word.
Oh, we are getting angry as the recording goes by.
Sorry. No, look, I'm sorry to say this.
Yeah.
You know, when Parliament opened, everybody was laughing, okay, because they look like a bunch of, there's a phrase, a parliament of baboons. Okay.
My mom got upset about that statement because my mom said the baboons are beautiful animals.
Sorry, David, hang on. Before you say that, I need to correct that. I checked Dr. Google, okay?
Okay.
Dr. Google says that it's a troop of monkeys or baboons. It's a parliament of owls.
All right, okay. So let's call it a troop. It doesn't matter.
But don't let the facts spoil the story. Don't let the facts spoil the story. It's a parliament of baboons, okay?
Yeah.
But you see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the problem. Regardless, I'm sorry, I'm apolitical. I'm not a card-carrying member of any political party, but I love my country.
Yeah.
So the country and the government are different as far as I'm concerned. I can love my country and not agree with the government. It's okay. I'm still patriotic.
That should be the way. That should be the way.
I'm still patriotic.
Yep.
Okay. And in that regard, when I see these people in Parliament, they have no decorum, they have no respect for each other, and more importantly, that is the seat of the young di Pertuan Agong. That is where the speaker sits under that perlembagaan. absolutely no respect for that, you know. And I'm so sorry, RealChunWai, but I tell you honestly,
You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry. You said it.
I have no hope for all of them. Maybe a few sprinkling here and there, I think are okay. But by and large, all of them, no hope. You know what we need is a new generation of nation builders and statesmen. Not politicians who play politics, who go numbers, this, that. No, they should have the love for their country. Okay, we're all wearing Projek 57. Very proud of it. I think, you know, 5 years ago, that is where we should be going. We should be educating our younger generation to start looking at the country and start looking at building the country. You know, that famous quote by Tunku Abdul Rahman, you know, prioritize the country first and yourself last. Mm-hmm. I don't see any politician in parliament doing that today.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you can Google that quote.
Why do you think that? Why do you think there's an absence of messages and contents in parliament which should be bringing people together in a spirit of unity? You can have your differences. I mean, we should have differences over how a matter should be resolved, should be conducted. I don't understand why our MPs must shout at each other. Okay, I mean, they call names, you know, they call all kinds of names to, I mean, our parliament really has no debate quality. It degenerates into name calling, you know, I'll call you a dog, I call you a cat, I call you a zebra, when they actually behaving like monkeys, okay, in the words of David. Why is it that after so many years, 60 years of parliamentary democracy, we still cannot have MPs who can speak up with great decorum and with substance? I mean, in the days of Tunku Abdul Rahman, if you read some of the quotes and the parliament debates, I mean, Tan Chi Kun, the Srinivasigan brothers, I mean, they were good. Why have we come to this level?
My father was a member of parliament as well, right? And during his time, right, I remember it was very civil. Actually, there was always a certain class and respect, even amongst the government and opposition and all of that. But unfortunately, it comes to an evolution or a stage in our life, in our democracy, where unfortunately, maybe for the majority of them in the house, the people outside might be smarter. This is very unfortunate. But if the people outside are smarter, then we have a serious problem already, because you've been voted in to actually do something, but you are unable to even convey and do the job that you are actually supposed to do. Okay, if you want to talk about unity, let's not talk about unity outside the house, because this pandemic has actually shown unity, shown a lot of people working together. You have a problem, you have food shortage, you put out a white flag and immediately somebody is going to make sure that they help you. That's unity. You want to make sure that you want to show that you are unhappy about something, you actually are able to band together and work together. That's unity. But when you are actually put in the house and in this place where you are supposed to respect one another, and this COVID thing is not a unique thing where, it's mine, ini aku punya, aku akan jaga. No, this is something that you should be working and rallying with everybody. Every single smart person in the house should be working together and voting together, instead of, being like, as Dr. David said, like baboons. It's ridiculous. How can you heckle people while they are speaking? Imagine your child up on stage addressing her school or a speech, and her schoolmates are heckling her. Imagine that. It would never happen in school. Why is it happening in parliament? My son, I'm going to tell you this quick story, okay? On the day that parliament opened, my son kept on messaging me, telling me, are you watching the parliament? And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, you really got to watch it. It is hilarious. So I end on that note. Go ahead, Dr. Sri.
Okay, I want to bring up the subject of unity, and that at the end of the day, we are all Malaysians of all races. We are all in the same boat. And the COVID-19 situation actually put all of us in this together. Okay, from a business perspective, how has all these businessmen of all races coming together to face this problem together? And from the people point of view, on the ground level, how does Project 57, what kind of issues and what kind of problems that you have come across that brings people together? Can we start with David from a business perspective, please?
You know, I tell you something, Chunwai. We started Industries Unite about the end of January, and it came about because we realized that the mid to lower end of the SMEs, including the micro businesses, did not have a voice. So the voice was always all the big factories and all of that, but they didn't have a voice. So we got together because of a common purpose. A common purpose, and this is a beautiful lesson that I learned in the 6 months. And the common purpose was survival. And when you have 60% of them who are Bumiputra, 50% are not, 40% are not Bumi. But when you see them speak, when you see them support each other, when you see the micro businesses supporting the bigger SMEs, bigger SMEs fighting for the micro businesses, landlords, we have the mall association, for example, and then we have, for example, MRCA, with generally tenants, right, in businesses. When they are working together, can you imagine during a pandemic like this, they're supposed to be on opposite ends, but they're working together, you know? So you find, and what I've learned is that when we focus on a common goal, like the people, like what Syed Sadiq said just now, right? Which is when people needed to help each other, they didn't care. We're also doing something called Projek Satu Hati, where we're feeding people and everybody is pulling their weight. Nobody's looking at race, nobody's looking at religion, nobody's looking at status, nobody's looking at that. So the idea is a common purpose approach. Now, why that differs from the politics and the government and whatever that you have is because they always try to direct you to a common enemy. You realize enemy of a certain religion, enemy of a certain race, enemy of democracy. So they put labels on something and everybody follows that, and it's always a common enemy. That's how it works. But what this has shown me in terms of unity, multiculturalism, part one of Rukun Negara, which we really are a society. I've given up. I thought, you know what, our Malaysian society is never going to aspire to that. But what I've seen, and like what Syed Sadiq says, we are that society that we aspire to be, which is a multicultural melting pot, respecting each other on the ground. All we need to do is to focus on a common goal as opposed to different enemies that the politicians, for whatever reason, put before us. We need, and our common goal should be rebuilding this beautiful country that we call Malaysia.
Absolutely. Syed?
Yep. I mean, again, like what I said, right? This pandemic has really put us to the test, you know, and it's put people on the brink as well. So that is something which is very clear. I mean, one thing that actually gives me a lot of hope, like what Dr. David said as well, is that the vaccination rates have been wonderful. The guys have really done an amazing job there. That one is like, you know, you feel very confident about that. You're not questioning that part about everything, right? But when it comes to this situation where people say, you know, there's no need for you to actually ask for help because help is there. But actually people don't know where to go. And this is the part where I feel really, really spirited about Malaysians. And this is the part where when people talk about, oh, there's not going to be a Merdeka celebration or Malaysian Day, it's going to be really subdued, people are going to be upset and all of that. But actually, you know what we should be doing is on that day, right? Turn on your Kita Jaga Co app or whatever it is and reach out to those people, because once you just turn on that opportunity to be able to help someone, there'll be a few people screaming and begging for help, and you can actually do that. And that would be one of the best things for us during this Merdeka to actually do, to reach out to whoever it is, the people that we don't know, to let them know that there is someone always listening to you.
You know, it's a two-way street, Syed Sadiq, because, you know, it's a learning process. I think if there's anything, it's been a beautiful learning process for us. So we started something called Projek Satu Hati, and it was intended to help the restaurants, F&B, okay? So that people who buy regular price meals pay forward a meal. So which means we save jobs and we help the needy. And the main reason for that was because the buckles don't really work, okay? You have rice, tea, whatever, what are you cooking? We found people feeding children with milk powder because they couldn't really cook. And then some people, like, they don't have access to kitchens or, you know, different problems, right?
No fridge.
No fridge. So we've been giving daily meals, every day through this process. And that's been great. But you know what happened when we first started this was trying to get the restaurants on board. Okay. Now, if you're a restaurant and you're already dead and you've got no money, and somebody comes and tells you, hey, why don't you try to pay it forward? Why don't you make 40 meals or 50 meals at 8 ringgit first? Put your own money, and then we'll support you, and then let's see whether the community will come in and help. You know, so it took a lot of courage for some of these restaurants to actually do that, put out money they didn't have. But you know what? The community that came in, and you found everybody was so happy because the workers came out and they started enthusiastic. But these guys were pressured. They thought they're going to lose their job. Suddenly they have work to do. Suddenly when the public and the pictures go and they see all these people receiving this food and they're so grateful, you know, the feedback that we've got from the same restaurants is, you know, this is so amazing. This is so fulfilling. And that comes back to what you're saying, Sadiq, which is that we just need to take the first step. You know, we need to start engaging, but the beauty that comes out of it is amazing. And I think there's a beautiful and fabulous idea for Merdeka this year.
David, Syed, I want to share with you two stories. Sometimes Malaysians are very hard on ourselves. When things doesn't go right at the PVV, the vaccination centers, then we share a lot of video to show how bad the situation is. When the quarantine doesn't quite work to their level of standards, they get very upset. The videos start flying. You have noticed that the videos at quarantine centers have actually stopped. But I want to share with you some stories, okay? Now, I have a friend. She is in her 70s. She went to Sunway to get herself vaccinated. She went there alone. And that this very nice Malay nurse asked her, Akak, how did you came here? So she said that she came by taxi, which is a little bit of a walking distance out to the taxi there. Do you know that this very nice Malay nurse held her hand, accompanied her all the way to the front and make sure that she went on board the taxi. She came back and told me, she says that, look, Malaysia is really beautiful. You know that the nurse looked at me, an old Chinese lady, she went all out to help her. I mean, that's really touching, okay? But these stories are never shared, you know? I give another example. My brother-in-law was admitted to the quarantine center, and that at Sedang, of course, when you hear of quarantine center, you get very frightened. He was really terrified. He had 2 shots, okay, 2 fully vaccinated, but because he was doing street feeding to the Myanmar refugees, he caught this problem, and he thought that it would be very mild when he went for the checkup, but because it was already stage 3, which he wasn't aware, they immediately took him into the quarantine center. Okay, so for 3 days, he was wearing his own clothes. Okay, he did not pack the clothes, spare clothes, you know, and battery charger to go to the quarantine center, because that was what he wasn't expecting. Well, anyway, in that 3 days, we had to make sure that he will have this extra clothes, because he ended up staying there for 10 days. I mean, the quarantine center is not a hotel, okay? I mean, there are thousands of people down there. The jobs of the nurses is not to send you clothes, okay? But I tell you, okay, he was terrified of what will be sent to him, because he had heard so many negative stories about quarantine. So he sent pictures. Day 1, wow, char kway teow for breakfast, man. I said, wow, that's good, okay? Day 2, some Western food. I mean, he didn't expect it. But I made some calls, okay, to be honest, but the bags, they went all out to trace his bags and send it to him. I tell you that Malaysians do help each other. It's just that these beautiful stories are sometimes not shared. We are so engrossed, we say nasty things about ourselves. Yeah. I want to talk about UK, okay, before I go on, okay? Now, everybody is singing praises about UK. They're having a great time now. Everybody goes to the pub, watch football, go and see the football matches, go to concerts. But if you look at the statistics at the COVID data, it shows that they are still hovering around 30,000 cases per day, 100 over deaths a day. And you are talking about a country that's already vaccinated, almost fully vaccinated. But you know that it's still there because COVID is already an endemic. 30,000 cases a day with 100 over people dead. You can see that the BBC has stopped reporting that because they have moved on. So, but the point here I want to say is that we are too quick to say bad things about ourselves. I mean, speaking to you guys tonight, where you share stories of how Malaysians coming together in your own way, your businesses and your projects really uplifted me tonight, really. I want to hear more such stories as we approach National Day, that we as rakyat, we have so many problems that's coming up our way. The next 3 weeks is going to be very crucial. But what can we Malaysians do ahead of National Day and after National Day in time for Malaysia Day? David, please tell us.
Can I say the first thing we need to do is go back and learn. Okay, go back and read the Rukun Negara, part 1, part 2, right? Number 2, sing Negaraku. A lot of people don't know the words to Negaraku. We came from a generation where we sang it in school every morning. Our Selangor song, and we sang it with a lot of gusto. We were so proud, and until today, I'm so proud. And all of us are very proud Malaysians. I always see that. And I think we need to do that. We need to go back and we need to find out who we really are. Because at the end of the day, we can complain until the cows come home about the politicians. But remember, the politicians are a reflection of us as a society. They are who we are. And who we are is a kind of a lost generation. And we need to learn to move away from all of that. We need to learn to start to think for ourselves. But most importantly, we need to remember that we should be proud of our country. We should learn to be proud of our country and understand our country is different from the government. We are Malaysian. Everybody has a role to play in nation building. I think that's something that I learned, and I was seriously very inspired. In fact, actually, one of the biggest was this thing called Projek 57.
Yes.
And I never really paid myself a lot of attention to nation building. Usually we'll just complain as usual in the coffee shop or whatever. We'll complain about everything, and that's where it started. And that's why Colin and Sadiq and Debbie and all these people in the team. And when they started this project, I thought, okay, that's very interesting. And they've kept it, I believe, 5 years, right?
6.
6
wow.
years, Sadiq. And I was really inspired by that, and I inspired by all the things. And even, if you understand the story behind this little ribbon that we wear, about how they're actually made by Orang Asli, and given back to Orang Asli and things like that. These are all beautiful stories and they're out there. But the problem is we'd rather watch Netflix, we'd rather, but we're not, so we need to do that. And we need to do that for our generation, the next generation. In other words, maybe tonight, instead of that family gathering, watching another movie or something, maybe let's go back and look at some of the old videos. Let's look at some of the old speeches by Tunku Abdul Rahman as a family. Let's remember before Merdeka that we aspired to be a beautiful nation. We have come very, very far, and we cannot lose all the gains that we have.
Syed, that it is said that in every crisis, there's an opportunity. Given the fact that the government is very weak, politicians do not have a majority on their own, do you think that it is time perhaps to use this opportunity to reboot, to reset Malaysia for a new formula and a new dynamics involving younger politicians? What is your view?
I'm 100% for that. I actually really believe that we are in need of things that are fresh. Because one of the things that I think that we are stuck in is that we feel that this is the only things that we have. And I mean, whether it's leadership and all of that, and we can't break away from it. A few characters are the only characters that are there because it's been set in our mind. But actually the opportunity is now for us to actually look and say, like, we should be able to look at giving opportunity to others or opportunity to anyone who feels as though, look, I am willing to do this, I'm going to sacrifice, and you need somebody fresh, not someone from the system. One thing that I wanted to add as well, listening to Dr. David talk about our project, is that we have to realize that as Malaysians, and the three of us being here and all of that, is that, and we're all different, right? Yeah. You want to talk about race, you want to talk about religion, all three of us are different. But our aspiration is identical for our country. Exactly what we want. And that's what we represent. Projek 57 represents that aspiration. And it's so important for us to always realize that we always, again, and I always emphasize this in quite a few talks and all of that, we always focus on unity in diversity, and all that. Mm-hmm. But I always feel that something that we should be magnifying is our similarities. You know, pantang kita semua sama, masuk hutan tabik datuk, you know, kita apa ni nak pergi buang air ke, or kita beranak these days, anyone gives birth and all of that, your pantang becomes the Chinese, Malay, Indian punya pantang of what you eat. I mean, these are the things that actually, you know, so every time we try to focus on so much about how different we are, yeah, and it's great, but actually, we should be looking at the positive side as well. It's like, hey, how similar we are, how close we are to one another is something that we should like be going, you know, hey, brother, you know, we're Malaysians, and this is what is really, really important. I hope that, you know, David, Dr. David, you were talking about stuff and all, and it just, I fly the flag every year, not because of any reason, but because I love flying the flag during this period. I hope that more Malaysians will actually do that this year, because you are able to separate your anger and focus it on love for country. That is the most important thing.
David, David and Syed, David started off the program by saying that a lot of people have asked him, is there any reason for us to celebrate this Merdeka Day? And that is there any hope for Malaysia? Should we feel even optimistic? Should our children just migrate because that they are given greater opportunities elsewhere? There's greater liberties elsewhere. I want to end this program with thoughts on this question from both of you. Syed perhaps, and then followed by David. Is there hope for Malaysia?
Absolutely, there's hope for Malaysia, because we realize that in this pandemic, we're not alone. We actually have each other. And Malaysians, regular Malaysians, have all reached across the aisle to be able to work together to help one another. And and I've seen that through our project, through Project 57, through the food project that we've done. So there's really a lot of hope. We just need to rise above the anger and the hate.
David?
Well, you know, despite I think you read about things in the paper, what I'm involved in and everything. I've never left the country. Even though I've had all the opportunity to do that, I never did, simply because I love this country. I have so many roots here, so much of my culture, playing football, drinking water from the tap, you know, catching tadpoles. My best memories are very localized, very different. Nasi lemak, teh tarik, my likes. It's very unique, and it's very uniquely Malaysian, because my experience, and I like to be with all of you. You're both my very good friends. You get what I mean? I don't want to, why should I leave? Why? This is my country. If anything, we want to improve it. So what do we need to do? Like, I'm very, very passionate about nation building, and I'm working with my kids. Like with my daughter, I spend a lot of time. And I think that's something that, you know, if we shouldn't ask our kids to leave the country. We should start teaching our kids to be proud and to work towards nation building. In other words, nation building should be something that is taught in school. The Rukun Negara should be taught in school. Unity and multiculturalism and all these things should be something that is prioritized for the youth. Am I saying there's no hope? No. Actually, you know what? Out of all this chaos, as you say, you know, this is Sun Tzu, out of war, right? In chaos, there's opportunity. And in all of this chaos, I saw a group of young people emerge, teenagers. You know, you have the undi, forget about whether they are right or wrong, you agree with them, you disagree with them. But the fact remains, I always thought this generation didn't care. But you know what? They actually went out there and they stood up because they love their country. And I think that is very, very promising for the future, as is the current, there are a lot of young and very capable, leaders, politicians, if you want to call it that, across the board, you know, and I can name them. We all would agree, right? You know, and unless they are given a chance, you know, do you see these people actually, people like Nurul Izzah, like, you know, Hannah and Syed Sadiq, do you actually see them given a chance to lead? the old folks, I'm sorry, Kit Siang and Tun, you guys did a great job. It's time to go. Okay, all of you should allow and nurture and cultivate and allow these young people with nice ideas to come up and start leading, trusting them. And I think if we can learn to do that, if we can learn to focus on our young, and I think nation building starts with us, all of us.
Yeah.
What are we going to teach our children? How are we going to raise them? And if we can, everyone take that and be proud of who we are, then we're going to have a fantastic future. We're the best country in the world. I'm sorry, but we are number one.
Yes.
You don't have to apologize for that. I absolutely agree.
Okay, I have a message to end this program. The message to the politicians. During wartime, and we are at war against the pandemic, we should stand together to defend our country, not shoot at each other. And that's your problem, politicians. You are shooting at each other. Look at the COVID-19 numbers, not look at the number of statutory declarations that you try to collect every night and every day. Please, please, please. That's the message from Malaysia and Malaysians across the nation ahead of National Day and Malaysia Day. We love Malaysia. If you cannot love Malaysia, please, we will tell you at the next general election what we think of you. Thank you. Good night. David, Syed, it's been a great pleasure having you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.